truly hoping that I did not schedule a 10-period parent meeting last night, followed with a teacher evaluation meeting the next day to completely lose my self-esteem because, wow. Last night, if anybody was here, it was the most interesting thing I think I've ever been through in my life. Parents were not particularly happy in regards to us looking at a 10-period schedule. And there were a few suggestions that were made that we will continue to look at. As I look at them initially, I don't see any initial feasibility of any of the offered suggestions, but we will look further into them just to see if maybe they know something that we don't. In the meantime, we know that Wesley Chapel and Land Lakes took a year and a half to plan a 10-period a day, and we have less than 10 months. So we're going to continue to move forward with that unless something else more feasible jumps up in its spot before we're done with the plan. So at this time, I'm going to invite Ms. Jack up to present our first teacher and staff member of the month for the 2014-15 school year. Before she comes up, I want to say that I appreciate the nominations that came in this year. It has been and it has gotten better each and every month that we've done this. It's not just a name. People are giving us really great, solid reasons for the nominations and really making it difficult for us to choose just one. So I'm going to turn the mic over to Cindy and then I'll be right back with you.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Texas Roadhouse has graciously partnered with us this year to sponsor our Teacher of the Month and Student of the Month, so we're very appreciative of them. We're going to be working with them closely with a project that we have that will be on board as of January, so look to hear more about Texas Roadhouse. First, I would like to present our Teacher of the Month award, Teacher of the Month award, to a teacher who got several nominations from you for how hard she is working as the sponsor of the class of 2016. So Brittany Doan. Brittany, your fellow peers had wonderful things to say about you as far as everything that you've been organizing so far. So your hard work is very much appreciated and does not go unnoticed. And the next is for our staff member of the month, and I don't believe that she's here, but I'm sure that you guys will definitely give her a round of applause, even though she's not, Julie Beardsley. We all know that Julie works tirelessly every day for subs to arrange things. She's calling all the time, getting people to cover classes, even if it's just for 5 minutes. So we definitely appreciate everything that Julie does. So I'll make sure that she gets this.
All right, we have a few other recognitions, and these are just the things that I could think of that came across in the last week that maybe or maybe not you saw some of these. I'd like to congratulate Mr. Duncan. Mr. Duncan, are you here? He's probably with the band. Band got their highest score in first place at the Citrus County band competition last weekend. They will be at Newsom High School this coming weekend, so if any of you would like to travel out to the Fish Hop, Brandon, do we know what time we're meeting? 7:15 p.m.? Yes. p.m. 7:15 p.m. At Newsom High School in Fish Hop, so if you want to go out and support the band, that's where they'll be this Saturday. They work tirelessly. You see them out there in the afternoon practicing. They have supported the football team. They're working towards making the band a bigger and better program, and I think that they're doing a great job. So please make sure that you tell the band members congratulations when you see them, and help out do a good job on his part also. Mindy here. Mindy, stand up. Mindy and her volleyball team just finished up their volleyball season last night. Unfortunately, they did lose to a very good team, the #1 ranked team in the districts. But her team just did finish their season last night. We just want to congratulate Mindy for girls cross country. Where's Don Howard?
Right here.
Oh, Don Howard. Don Howard, you got no look. She got the camera on. That's awesome. Don Howard and his girls cross country team just got their seventh straight victory as the Sound Girls Conference champions. We look forward to their 8, 9, 10, and further, so that's great. Congratulations. We want to take a few minutes, and Sean Terry, you want to come up and talk about your senior class for a few minutes? You don't? I know that. I want to congratulate the senior class teachers, and specifically the senior class. I don't know, those of you that, I like to use the word survive the senior class last year. No, it has been a world of difference this year. And so this senior class has probably been, since we opened, one of the most well-behaved, very supportive of each other, very well-liked group of students who are doing a fantastic job of showing school spirit, showing support of each other, and the teachers, I think, are helping to promote that engagement and that camaraderie with them. And so again, I'd like to, you teach seniors, could you just stand up? You teach seniors anytime during your day, stand up. Okay, now everybody give yourselves a hand, because this is really awesome. And as you know, the first quarter is just now over, week 10. We had a lot of things happening in the first quarter, a lot of things happening. Testing started. We managed to get through PSAT, FCAT retakes, EOC retakes. I think we've had the Discovery Ed. What am I missing? A little bit of everything. And testing will continue throughout the year, but so far it has been a great testing experience. Again, we appreciate that you take the time to come to the Lunch and Learns to learn about your proctoring jobs, and that you do that proctoring very well. So again, thank you for all of that. Remember that our school improvement goals, we talked about them at the beginning of the year. Starting next month at the faculty meetings, we're really going to kick into gear with the professional development piece that tags along with the school improvement plan, really starting to look at the writing piece and the writing rubrics and some of the things that you asked for at the beginning of the year, and how to use a common rubric, how to score some writing. So we're really going to dig deep into that starting at next month's faculty meeting. Parent communication, keep it up. Make sure that you're calling those parents. Remember that part of our school improvement plan was to make sure that we had first contact. So call, whether it's good, it's bad, it's ugly, it's beautiful, it's terrific. Make those phone calls. Make sure that parents know what kids are supposed to be doing here. And if they're doing a good job, let them know about that also. You know, make sure that you have a little bit of positives in with those calls that you're doing elsewise. I'm hearing great things about the amount of, or the improvement in customer service this year, and that's what I want to keep up. And finally, this year above any other year, I am totally digging the support that you are giving each other. I love seeing the emails of support and the positivity that's happening. We're trying to pass it off to the kids and doing these random tweets of positivity. That's starting to take off a little bit. Make sure that you just keep bringing everybody up. The more positive we are, the happier we all are to be here. And I'm just so happy and proud to be your principal. I appreciate everything that you do each and every day, and I just encourage you to keep that encouragement up each and every day as we continue on through this year. We're only one quarter down. We've got 3 more to go, so let's keep it up. All right, with that said, we're going to get into the training of the day, and I know you've been waiting for this. Teacher evaluations. Things are going to change just a little bit with teacher evaluations this year with the introductions of domains 2, 3, and 4. And if you look at the handout that you were given today, you'll see on one side is the very familiar domain 1 with the 41 elements that you've been scored on for the last 2, 3 years. And then on the other side, you will see domains 2, 3, and 4. And before I even get into the PowerPoint, if you just take a brief look at that, you're going to see that most of what you see in domains 2, 3, and 4 are things that you do every day anyway. There shouldn't be anything on there that would be like, oh, I don't do that. It should all be things that you're like, yeah, I do this all the time. All right, so I don't want you to stress out about domains 2, 3, and 4. It's not a stressful situation. We know that you already do it. We are very confident that you will be fine in terms of domains 1, 2, 3, and 4. So we're going to go ahead and get started. started with this. Just keeping in mind that the goal of the teacher evaluation is to see growth and improvement in the teaching from year to year. It requires self-reflection. It requires reflection on the administrator's parts. When we talk about deliberate practice and you selecting a deliberate practice, we want you to make it intentional. We want you to pick something that maybe you're not so good at and work towards building that. Why pick something that you're already great at? Where are you going to go with that? Pick something that you need some work on. We all need work. I need work. You need work. We all need it. So pick something that you can intentionally reflect on and improve on, and then proceed with that in deliberate practice throughout the year. Now I have to apologize because this is probably the worst slide of the day. It's a little blurry. But this is the causal links of student achievement. You see that student achievement is at the top. And each one of those align to each one of the domains. Domain 1 is the classroom strategies, and we know that that's what supports the student achievement, that it has the greatest impact on student achievement, and that's why it's closest to the top. But you can't have those classroom strategies and behaviors unless you have the planning that comes before it. You always have to consider the planning with the end in mind, and what do you want to get out of that prior to you actually instructing in the class. So planning and preparing is domain 2. Domain 3 is reflecting on teaching. And again, we've said it before, the best teachers are those that reflect on their teaching and think about what could I have done better? And how could I do that better? And then making notes about it and making those changes. Don't just write it down, do it. Take some action for it. And then domain 4 is the collegiality and the professionalism. That's the piece that drives the school improvement. That's the piece that takes us from where we are today to that next level. And that's where we want to go from here. Okay, in your hands, you should have a copy of what you see on these next 2 slides. I'm not going to go over them. I just wanted to point them out. Keep these as a resource. Side 1 is domain 1, which you are very familiar with or should be very familiar with right now. If you're a new teacher to Pasco County, we will work through your new teacher meetings to make sure that you get familiar with domain 1. And then everybody will be looking at domains 2, 3, and 4 as the new piece to this year. Okay. So what I want to start off by talking to you about is how your summative evaluation is going to be scored for this year. This is not really anything that's new, but I want to explain how the different domains are broken up. So every year so far, you've been scored in your summative evaluation with a 50% of your score coming from your status score, which is your observation score. That 50%, however, this year is going to be broken up between domains 1, 2, 3, and 4. Domain will be 70% of that 50%. Math teachers are calculating that right now. Domain 2, which is the planning and preparing, is 15%. Domain 3, which is the reflecting, is 10%. And the collegiality and professionalism, domain 4, is 5%. So that 50% is a little bit more complicated this year in that each part of the domains counts as a different percentage within that 50%. Then they will take that and average it with your student test scores. Now remember that a lot of those end of course exams this year are field tests, so they won't be affecting you. So for this year, most of you will go off the school average one more time. But next year, it will be based upon your classes and your end of course exams. So this year, similar to the way that it's been for the last couple of years, it's based on if you're a reading teacher and there is a reading test, then it's based on that. Algebra teachers, it's based on the algebra EOC. Geometry teachers, it's based on the geometry EOC, but everybody else is school average. Okay? The last piece, the deliberate practice, and some of you may remember this and some of you may not. Deliberate practice is not anything additional percentage-wise. What they do is they take your deliberate practice And it's an additive score that they add to your status score. And then once they add it to that, then they average it with your test score piece of it. So some people, for example, last year, if you were an effective on your observation, and then you ended up with effective on your deliberate practice, you would think that that would mean you would be effective. But that's not the way it worked out. You became highly effective. So 2 effectives in that case equal to highly effective. And we assume that it will be the same thing for this year because it is the same process. Okay, so moving on to the pieces that we really need to talk about, domains 2, 3, and 4. Each of the elements in 2, 3, and 4 has a separate protocol. You can see those protocols on iObservation. I would recommend that sometime before we begin these observations that you take the time to go into iObservation, look at each element separately, look at what the protocol says, see what the evidences are, look at what the scale says, and we'll talk a little bit about that in just a minute. But make sure that you're studying it just a little bit so that you know what's going to be expected and what evidences you can turn in order to achieve effective or highly effective ratings. Evidence for use in the instructional strategies is typically collected outside of the classroom. So your lesson plans, your phone logs, your PLC minutes, your common assessments. There's a whole list of them, and I'm going to show you some of those evidences in a few minutes, but typically it's things outside of the classroom. However, if you take what you're turning in, for example, the lesson plans, if I look at the lesson plans, I should be able to connect them to what I'm seeing in the classroom. So there needs to be a connection between the two. Okay, can't see this, so you probably can't either. Domain 2 is on planning and preparing, and this just has a brief thing, and I apologize, I thought it would be a little bigger. One thing that I'd like to show you is that the scale is a little bit different from Domain 1, in that instead of starting with the effective or highly effective on the left and going down, it goes in reverse. And then some of the things that you need to see is, for example, and this is the same protocol throughout, or the same scale throughout, developing means the teacher took action. They did what they were supposed to do with no mistakes, but that's all they did. They just took action. To get to that applying, the teacher took the action, but then there was follow-through. There was a sequence of events that followed through. And then to get to innovating, it's about the teacher being a leader, coaching, sharing, being collaborative. That's what you should be shooting for when you're looking at domains 2, 3, and 4. Specifically, when we talk about domain 2, planning is the key. Again, you're going to plan with the end in mind. You want to make sure that that planning is done with a purpose, that it is purposeful. What are you looking for as the end result? What are you trying to achieve? And that it is a cohesive plan. It can't stand alone. It's got to have a flow. What is that flow? Here in this particular slide, and by the way, I will send out this PowerPoint to you so that you have all this. It's just a list of sample evidences. This is not the be-all, end-all. This is not just the things that you can turn in, but they are a good set of evidences. I know often you say, well, what can I use to turn in as evidence for this? Here's a great example of things that you could use for planning domain 2. Domain 3 is on reflecting on teaching. And I think this is something that most of us do anyway. But the ability and the willingness to examine your own work and your own professional development is important. So when you're thinking about domain 3 and when we're looking at that, we're looking for things that shows that you've been reflective. Again, you've been doing this already. You've already been doing deliberate practice. Within your deliberate practice, you've already been doing reflection logs. What you may have to consider now is really putting some thought into that reflection. When you teach a lesson, annotating your lesson plans and making notes about what might have went well or what didn't go so well. and what you might want to do differently in the future. Sharing that information within your PLCs and having that recorded in your PLC notes about maybe somebody tried a different strategy than you did and it worked out better for them, making those notes. So again, for domain 3, we have a list of evidences, maybe, okay? And we have a list of elements, which you will see on your handout. And then the provided list of evidences. Again, you'll see on this list is pretty much everything that I just mentioned. When you start with your deliberate practice, you always start with a self-reflection. So that's going to be the very first thing. You are going to self-reflect. It's almost an immediate, you know you're going to do it, it's done. It's an evidence that you can use for domain 3. Domain 4 is the collegiality and professionalism. And that's exactly what it means. It's talking about you being positive in the workplace, that you're being supportive of one another, that you are following through on district and school initiatives and school and district rules and procedures. Again, it's nothing that you haven't already been doing, but now it's going to count 5% of that 50% of your evaluation. When you talk about what is included in domain 4, you can see right at the top, promoting a positive environment. So are you the person that's sitting in the teacher workroom always being negative Millie? Those things get back to us. Be positive. Support one another. Promoting exchange of ideas and strategies. You're doing that right now in your PLCs. You're doing that right now within each other when you see something working. Promote it, share it. This is a time to be helpful to one another and making sure that everybody is aware of good things that are happening. And the last piece is promoting the school and district initiatives, which is pretty much making sure that you're promoting and following our school improvement plan, the district initiatives. When we come up with rules, and we had the whole conversation at the beginning of the year about it takes a team to make sure that school rules are in place. If we have a tardy policy and you're the person sitting back saying, well, you know, we've given them 6 minutes, but that's still not enough, I'm going to let them in. That's not helping. Because if you let them in, they're going to continue to be late. I watched 16 people come in first period this morning as a group, and they were like, oh yeah, okay, we're late. Would I find that those tardies were marked, and would I find that consequences were given? Everybody has to be on board with that. I cannot stand alone. My administrative team cannot stand alone. We need all 200 of us to work together to make that happen. And that's part of supporting the school and the district rules and procedures. Okay, as you can see, the sources of evidence of domain 4 are pretty common. If you have documentation, I am going to start asking the guidance counselors that as they take notes for parent-teacher conferences, to not just make a copy for the parents and the teachers, but also make a copy for the teacher, or sorry, not just the parents, but the teachers that are involved in the conference, so that you can keep that documentation for your domain 4 evidence. Documentations of minutes or agendas from district or school committees that you sit on. Documentation of your PLC work, which you should be doing anyway. And if you don't personally have it because you're not the PLC leader, they have it that you can get copies from. Presentations. If you do a presentation to a staff, like the tech team who's doing presentations after school, if you're part of a lunch and learn, if you're doing that, keep copies of that information and those presentations. You should be keeping evidence logs of your phone calls home. If you're making a phone call home because of tardies, because of dress code, because of whatever, grades, etc. If you're doing comments, any similar, keep copies of that so that you have that as evidence for this domain. Parent-teacher conferences we talked about. If you attend a PTSA meeting, a sporting event, a fine arts event, drama event, next Tuesday night at Wesley Chapel Performing Arts, we're doing a big bullying presentation, a joint presentation with John Long Middle School and our 2 elementary schools. You're all invited. Our drama group will be be producing or will be performing a short musical called The Weight of Words. And they will be doing that as a introduction to our bullying segment. If you participate in professional development, I think the easiest way to provide documentation for that professional development is to print out your avatar sheet for what you did this year with your points. It's the easiest way to provide some documentation that you have done professional development that helps you within the school. Okay, so now we get to the observations. This is a change this year, so I'm going to ask everybody to kind of sit up and pay attention to this. We will include this year both informal and formal observations. Now, the way I need you to understand this, if we had begun this at the beginning of the year, which is what we always hope for, but never seem to get there, you would have received 3 informal, unannounced observations, 1 in each quarter of the first 3 quarters of the year. If those informal observations are scored effective or highly effective, you would not do a formal observation at the end. Those 3 informal observations would be average, and that would be your status score. Because the first quarter's already gone, now you're going to do 2 instead of 3. So 2 informal, unannounced observations. But I want you to see the part that's in italics. If I happen to be your supervising administrator and I walk in and you are having the worst day of your teaching career, you get 1 pass. You say to me, Ms. White, turn around, walk out that door, and I'll see you another time. 1 pass. Amanda?
What if we're testing or giving a quiz?
I wouldn't count that. We won't count if you're giving a test. I mean, if we're coming in and you're teaching, but it's not your day. You came in, my grades kick in, it's horrible. Could you just turn around and we'll do a do-over? You get 1 pass. You're allowed to do that once, okay? And we'll come in on another day. Those teachers who have not earned an effective or highly effective rating on each of their informal will then have to go through a formal observation. And those informal become non-evaluative. So they just switch over to feedback only, and then you go through a full formal observation. Remember, on that formal observation, we're not looking at all 41 elements. We're looking at what's dominant. That hasn't changed. It's the same as last year. So typically we would see somewhere in the neighborhood of about 5 to 10 things. Okay? But that's if you got to a formal. Most of you are probably going to stick with the 2 informals and call it a day. Okay, should a teacher earn either effective or highly effective on each of the informal, a post-conference will be held for the purpose of feedback and growth. Those scores are averaged and you're done. For those teachers who are required to have a formal observation, as I just said, the informal observations become non-evaluative, and the formal observation becomes your status score. And then teachers who are in their first year in Pasco County, you will do the 2 informal as non-evaluative so that you're getting feedback. You're going to do the formal, but you'll have 2 informal for feedback only before that formal happens. Okay, before I go on, is everybody pretty clear with that? Okay, I know what you're going to ask. First quarter, we've been doing walkthroughs, which is just simply school-based, our form. Yeah. First quarter, we were just kind of popping in and out. We're not staying. Your informal observations are unannounced, but we're there for probably 10 to 20 minutes. We're going to score a couple of things. You got our school feedback. It was a form we completed. Yeah, you got the one that ties into our school improvement plan. And we'll continue to do some of those until we get permission to start informals. Yes, because I can. Right. But those are just walkthroughs, okay? Okay, informal cycle, no pre-conference. It's unannounced. It's walk in and stay for 10 or 20 minutes, score what we see, leave and send you feedback. Repeat cycle. At the end, if both of them are effective or highly effective, we sit down and have a post-conference, we reflect about what I saw, or teacher saw, or Ms. Gardner saw, or whoever comes to see you, and you're done. If you go through a formal observation, okay, if you go through a formal observation, it's similar to what we've done in the past, and for those of you that are new, you will meet with us for a pre-conference. We'll talk about what we're going to see. We'll come in and do an observation, and then we'll have a post-conference to reflect. If you think about that, that is all aligned to your different domains. The planning is aligned to domain 2, the observation to domain 1, and the reflection to domain 3. So it's all aligned throughout the whole cycle. Some other information. This part, again, a little new. You've been required to be doing lesson plans all along, and in the past, we waited to the end of the year. But because we're doing informal, unannounced observations, we have to have those lesson plans in our hands so that we know what we're coming to see. Otherwise, I have no idea if it's going to be a new material day, if it's going to be a review day, and I still may not know. But I'm going to have a better idea by having the lesson plans in my hands. So starting the first week of November, lesson plans will be due to your supervising administrator the Friday prior to the next week. So in other words, on November 7th, your lesson plans are due for the following week. Sorry? Yes, but you still should have some daily information. Right? Yeah, absolutely. There will be some adjustment, which is why. Ms. Ciccolillo, handing me her hand. If you need to make some adjustments to your lesson plans, we get that, but that's why we're asking them for the Friday for the following week, so then whatever adjustments you would have had to make, probably are going to be done. You're going to be maybe within a day. All right. Another difference, let me just get through this and then I'll come back. Domains 2, 3, and 4, unlike in the past, when we've opened up domain 1 and we finished it up and we submitted it and you saw it, domains 2, 3, and 4, we're going to open them up and leave them open for the whole year. That way, as we see things and we're collecting evidence from you, we can go ahead and put it in there and we won't be closing it out. But at the same time, the LSI people have allowed us or have worked out a way for us to share this with you, so that if you want to submit something and evidence that has to do with domain 3, you can submit it right under the add attachments. You don't have to give it to us. You're going to be able to physically go straight in and add your own attachments, your own evidence. And then we'll be able to see it because we're going to be sharing back and forth. You'll see what we're putting in, we'll see what you're putting in. So it's a way for us to communicate electronically versus having to meet all the time for domains 2, 3, and 4. Finally, maybe, we have not been given permission as of right now to start any of this. So do not run out of here today and start doing your deliberate practice and your self-reflection because it'll get lost because they haven't rolled over yet. Don't do anything in eye observation. Take it from the principal who thought, oh, I'm going to get a head start on this and go ahead and do my self-reflection. Fortunately for me, I was able to print it out, but it's going to roll over, I'm going to lose all my information, and I'm going to have to go back in and do it again. So don't do anything until we tell you that it's been rolled over and you can start. At the same time that we tell you that, we'll set up your deliberate practice initial meetings, and then we'll go ahead and get into the informal observations. We're not going to, if you see us in your room, we're doing walkthroughs. We are not doing anything informal until I say go. Okay? All right, before I go to the next slide, Jen.
If we have unit plans, is it alright if we submit every Friday, like this is what we're doing this week?
Perfect.
And
Perfect.
I'm sure just to suit everybody, if like I said I'm doing something Tuesday, but Monday ran over because it's.
We know that that's going to happen. That's what Teresa was asking up here. So if we understand that there will be, a day or two adjustment one way or the
So
other.
it's more like an outline of here's what I'm doing.
Yes.
And here's our unit plan so you can see where it falls in the unit plan.
Yep. And if we have any major questions, we're not going to just assume anything. We're coming to you to ask.
Alright, cool.
Okay?
Is there a standard format?
Yeah, is there like an outline that we can get for the weekly, or is there anything specifically you want us to see, like standards?
Well, I'll get it out. Just in case you don't have one. All right. So, when this is all said and done, I'm sure you're going to go home tonight and you'll start thinking about this. And you'll most likely have questions. So what I'm going to ask that you do is if you have questions, please contact either me, Cindy Jack, or DML, because we are the three who have been officially trained. Prior to informal starting, the other three will be trained, but they can only train half of us at a time, because we need the other half to be here supporting the school. So if you have questions, talk with me, Cindy, or DML for right now, and we'll be able to help you out. All right, last but not least, I already told you that starting next month, we're going to roll into the school improvement plans and start working on the writing, so we do have a homework assignment for you, and Shantae is going to talk about it.
Okay, so one of our school goals was writing across the curriculum. So what we are asking that you do for homework is to go to our Canvas page. Marianne put it up today. If you go to our Canvas page and make sure that you're enrolled in the course, but you will see the link to your homework, which is just going to be for you to take the FSA, the Florida Standards Assessment Writing Test. So you can see and experience what our students are going to have to experience. You can go through, the English teachers have already done it, but you can go through, you won't be able to save any of your work and actually do, but you're going to actually be able to see the types of questions that our students are going to be asked to perform and the types of tests that they're going to, tasks that they're going to have to do so that you can see and understand and appreciate the training that's actually going to start next month. And then through that training, you'll get more and more information. Going through the tests, it's a 90-minute test, but what we want you to keep in mind, and again, it's on the Canvas site, are the things, the thought process that you take when you're going through to completing the problems and the answers, and then you're going to actually go through and just write a response or reflection on that, because that's how we're going to start off our conversation as to what you thought about that test. If you have extra time, you can go through and look at the other grades, but it is so eye-opening to see what they are requiring our 11 and 10th grade students to do. I went and looked at elementary and it like blew my mind. I'm like, really? Really, this is what they're asking them to do. So that's what we want you to do. Make sure that you complete that before you come in. And then just real quick, before we dismiss you, last night, the guidance counselors were here in full effect. I'm so proud of my guidance counselors. But it was the guidance counselors and all the administrators who were here last night, and we were just so proud of the way that Mrs. White represented us, and we just wanted to say thank you. It was the grace that she showed under pressure as she stood in the center of that gym by herself as parents just threw bullets, daggers, anything at her. And
smaller behind.
so since we missed her on Boss's Day, we wanted to, on behalf of your staff and the front office secretaries and your administrative staff, we just wanted to say that we are thankful and we are so appreciative that you are our teachers.
Again, I can't do this without the support of you and the team. There's no way that I could have stood up there last night and took, and when I say hateful comments being slung my way. At some points, there's nothing to do but to just stand and nod. Because there's definitely some things that they bring up that you as, some of you that are parents, you definitely agree with. As a mom of 3, I get where they're coming from, but what they didn't understand prior to walking into that gym is all of the things that we have looked at for the course of the last 2 to 3 years, and trying to explain that and showing them that this is not something that we just pulled out of a hat and said we were going to do. We are still looking for anything that's feasible. You all know, and those of you that have been through it, we all know that this is not the best case scenario, but it is the most feasible plan at this time. And so again, I want to thank all of you, because if I didn't know that I had the support of the staff and the faculty here at the ranch, I don't know that I could have stood up there on my own, because the district support staff sat on the sidelines, nicely on the sidelines, and I got the run of it face to face right at the mic. So again, thank you. If you have any questions about today's presentation, I will email it out to you. Feel free to contact us. Have a great afternoon, and make sure you adjust your time tomorrow accordingly. Is it Jean's